It started as just an idea. And then it turned into a plan. Making the chessboard, I wanted something different, unique, a one of a kind. I ripped 3/4 inch maple and walnut into 2 1/4 inch strips. I also ripped 1/4 inch maple and walnut into 2 1/4 inch strips. That's been done before. I cut all the strips into 2 1/4 inch square blocks. It's important to cut them all at once with the same setting. For my design, I will be using the sun and the raven. The suns are glued to the 1/4 inch walnut squares, and the ravens are glued to the 1/4 inch maple squares. I taped the walnut suns to the 3/4 inch maple squares, and the maple ravens to the 3/4 inch walnut squares. I spot the holes with an awl so that the 1/32 inch drill bit knows where to start. For the 32 suns, I drilled 32 holes in each. That's 1,024 holes. The ravens only get 24 holes in each. That's a grand total of 1,792 holes drilled. Now to the scroll saw. I tilt the table about 2 degrees to the right. Using a number 1 polar blade, I make all my cuts in a counterclockwise direction. I make one continuous cut, so I start and finish at the same hole. To keep track of where the parts go, I place them on a full-size pattern. The first few I made I cut the 3/4 inch pieces down and filled in the bottom of the hole. Then when the inlay was complete, I would still end up with a solid block. This turned out to be way too time consuming. Because I'm cutting a total of 1 inch thick stock, the fine blades I'm using are only good for 3 or 4 squares. It took 18 blades to cut all 64 squares. By cutting at a 2-degree angle, the pieces are tapered, and when I put them back in a hole, it fills in the saw curve to make a tight fit. The total time to make each square is 2.5 hours, and there are only 64 squares. That's about 160 hours. After a quick sanding, the squares come alive. I have a board with 2 stops at 90 degrees to keep the parts square when gluing. I mounted 2 clamps on the bottom, and I will glue up 1 row at a time. I'm using 1/8 inch cherry strips between each block and between each row. The first 4 squares face one direction, and the second 4 are reversed so they each face the players. I used maple and walnut wood filler to fill any holes left from the drilling. After much sanding, I glue on some 1/4 inch plywood to help stabilize the board. Even though you'll only see 1/8 inch of the edge of the board, I made it thick to keep it from warping. In part 2 of this video, I will be making the custom table for the board with dovetail drawers and a one-of-a-kind pedestal base.